let's introduce Trevor Wishart, who's on the screen you can see, joining us from York. Trevor, this piece is quite, I think, a summation of a lot of your activity. It combines different strands of your work. And so it's interesting to hear about it, and if you can set us up for the scenario and what we expect to hear.
Okay, then. So for people who don't know my work at all, I work largely in what we call fixed media. I call it electroacoustic music. I make music with sounds. It's not the only thing I do, but it's over the last 20 or 30 years, it's been my principal activity. And what I'm really interested in as a musician is two things, really: the human voice, in particular human speech, and also the idea of sound metamorphosis, which is a kind of technological extension of traditional musical variation technique. Instead of changing your melody from major to minor or whatever, you can change your sound from A to B using the current technology. So when I make a piece, I usually have to have two inputs. I call them the poetic and the technique. And the poetic is just some very vague idea of the expressive intent of the piece, nothing very focused. And the technique is, I'm easily bored, so I never like to make the same kind of piece twice. So I try to develop new ways of working. And that usually involves a large amount of computer programming. So in some previous vocal pieces, I've dealt with language at different timescales. So in a piece called Globalalia, I took thousands of recorded syllables, which I cut from about 20 languages, and organized them in terms of just of their sonority. It's a kind of celebration of human speaking, really. So speaking is something we all have in common. Once we start to worry about the words, we start to disagree with each other. The actual sound of speaking is a lot of commonalities between different languages. Then in a more recent piece, the Encounters in the Republic of Heaven, I recorded lots of people talking, and I was interested in the musicality of the phrases, something a bit shorter than a sentence, and looking at the melodic and rhythmic material inside it and the harmonic material it implied, and working with that. And also because I was working in a particular community in the northeast of England, I tried to embody that idea of community by projecting the sound all around the audience. Right? It was my first sound surround piece, and that was implied by, or suggested by, the poetic content of the piece. So, and then we finally come to tonight's piece, The Garden of Earthly Delights, which moves up another time scale. So from individual phrases to actual narrative. And when we get to narrative, I have more of a problem. I think very structurally as a musician. So I had to call upon the good services of writers to help me, to actually provide me with material to flesh out these crazy structural ideas. And so I'd like to particularly thank Martin Riley and Katrina Porteous, who I notice is listening. And they enabled me to develop text material and story material through which I could explore my structural ideas. So what is Garden? What's the poetic behind Garden? Well, the piece was finished just before the whole COVID thing started. And at that time, the world seemed to be going down a rather dark passageway. There were three things in particular which concerned me. One was the climate crisis, which politicians don't seem to be able to take seriously at all. It's too long term for them to be bothered with. Then there's what I call technological utopianism, the idea that we can solve all our problems by some new technological fix. We don't have to fix ourselves in any way. And the third thing, which you know particularly about, I notice at the moment in Ottawa, which I call digitally enhanced mob rule. And all these things coming together made me have strangely unsettled feeling about the world. And I was then inspired by the Hieronymus Bosch painting, The Garden of Earthly Delights, which is a sort of strange panorama of bizarre human activities, which seems to be some kind of commentary upon the human situation. I'm sure an art expert would have a very detailed explanation of all those images, but I'm not an art expert. I'm just amazed by the power of the painting and the kaleidoscope of images. And I thought, could I transfer that kind of structure into music? Well, of course, you can't simply take a visual structure and make it work in time with sound. So I adopted a slightly different approach. I decided I would have essentially a maze, so that you, as a listener, you find yourself in a particular environment, there's something happening, and then you go through a door and you find yourself in a different environment, something else happening. And so the piece goes on, but in the piece, you keep returning to these environments. And when you return, the situation has changed. This is my idea of metamorphosis taken to the level of narrative, but it also involves sonority and other things. And a rough guide to this piece is we start off in limbo, in a sort of a very contemporary limbo you'll immediately recognize. And then we go through 7 different environments. I just consult my list here because I can't remember them. But the first one, when we escape from limbo, is called the Vagranaut's Crossing. And this starts with the sound of a tramp shouting across traffic, but it develops in a rather unexpected way. The next one I called the Oracle, or Oracle 2, or the Artificial Wisdom System. The third one is the Mission. There's some kind of important project going on. It involves selecting people to go on this mission, whatever it is. The fourth, which you'll recognize more immediately, is a political rally. The fifth is called the Forest Path, where you hear a person walking through the forest and you hear the sound in the forest, and that also transforms. And finally, the negotiations, a kind of negotiation or argument between 2 people using the most outrageous sound material. So that gives you some guide to this rather long piece. And it is meant to be funny, though it's a rather dark comedy. So let's listen and enjoy.
Thank you for calling. You have reached GFT, Going Forward Together. We are experiencing a high volume of calls just now, but you can speak to Naomi, our online avatar, at any time at www.goingforwardtogether.com. Or continue to hold, and a GFT representative will be available to speak to you in approximately 3 days, 4 hours and 6 minutes. Thank you for calling Going Forward Together. You are now 2106th in the queue. Your call is important to us, and a representative will be available to speak to you as soon as one becomes available. Did Did you know that GFT have the highest online approval rating for GovTech agencies in this quarter year? To register your feedback and qualify for online game tokens and personalised prizes, go to www.giftoflifechoice.com and choose option 2. Thank you for calling Going Forward Together. You are now 2099th in the queue. Your call is important to us, and a representative will be available to speak to you just as soon as one becomes available.
It is safe to go. Out of my frigging way! Stuff to do! Need to be at Tesco! Just been freed me! Bad stitch! No time! Gotta be there by 2 meter force! I bet he'll no score me! Out of prison at fucking 40! Debbie from the ex-con mission, cure entering you! Says I'm a mess! All tangled! Engine off the wall! Man and bag me! Buy 'em all! Give a toss! In the cell! Superhero! Who you screwing, Buster? Fucking pressure gets to you when you're not high! Shoot up! Act 2! Just the one! Takes off the pressure! Alarm lights! No room on the bus! Holy shit! Why are you so damn slow? Gotta be in Tesco! Just been freed me! Why don't this bus go? Come on! Get going! Go!
Finite element sorcery reveals that sample-wise hopelessness may give way to price inelastic tranquility, but sparse distributed squirming costs cannot guarantee a relaxed bohemian dualism. Augury 4, system experiencing erroneous jolliness when it matches one's raw androgynous drives, and a greasy generative glide motion can presage a lasting push and prohibit mobility. System veering towards confidence. Augury 5, regrettably, by human qualification should be undeniable that performing happiness in level 6 the mutual determinism. Augury 7, cerebellum of metaphysics suggests a competently autonomous plausibility is the basis of cost-effective sovereignty. A biopsychological exegesis leads towards the eternalism. forth, if not whisper quiet in whispers. Augury 8, high combinatorial veracity. One grasps the eigenvalues of linear covariation. Your future is a rise from fully counterweighted optimism. Nevertheless, atonement stagnation demands belief-based tools for repentance. Augury 9, reaching the amazement state of neurotropic beatification and polyphase incarnation. Augury 12, system collapsing into spirited disintegration. Request for immediate meaningless substitution. Reaching the optimism nexus. One divines that institution and enormous sleeping may lead to ordinal, efficient banality. System descending into arithmetic squalor. Backup required urgently. Augury 14!
Welcome to Going Forward Together. CCTV recording on. Safeguarding level yellow beta. All staff retina checked for your security. To facilitate the large numbers being processed, please vacate your cubicle on termination of interview and follow the illuminated signs to the nearest exit.
Next. Several questions inappropriately answered. Goodbye. Next. Forms incorrectly submitted.
Lovely.
No credit card.
Bye.
No wallet.
Righty.
Ladborough
That's all for now.
serious tooth decay.
Lifelong bank overdraft.
Short-sleeved Hawaiian shirt.
Attitude rated offensive.
Keeps a hamster.
On GFT safe time and space.
Good to meet
Next.
you. Have a nice day.
Marvellous. Have a nice day.
Impatient, touchy, troubled,
Nice and water bills.
no valid identity.
Non-person.
Next.
Refers to security.
That's all for now.
Excluded from school.
So nice to meet you.
Lovely. Bye.
Eyes different colours.
Tedious. Questioning
No posters on social media.
Credit score.
Invalid gene tests.
Beneath acceptable limits.
Welcome to Going Forward Together. CCTV recording on. Safeguarding level yellow beta. All staff retina checked for your security. To facilitate the large numbers being processed, please vacate your cubicle on termination interview and follow the illuminated signs to the nearest exit.
Unlicensed drugs and alcohol consumption. Body and face shape. Poor work ethic. Poor quality license
See you again.
Can't panic down.
Isometric test.
Take care now. Smile. Take care.
14 unticketed travel offences.
Member of Randy.
Many friends and family.
Socially retro.
Next.
Match socks.
Vegan.
Ear piercing.
Volunteer.
Bad posture and high
Rights
cholesterol.
Association. Over 3 cats.
This substation is about to close. Interviews are concluded. Rejected applications or those with faces and or retina not recognized by Central Hub, please proceed now to Section C, where BrightFuture.com will organize your voluntary reassignment going forward.
50-1, and I'm winning. We open at war, we open with trade, we open with education. We are the movement of the future. We are the movement of the future. And I said it, and I'll tell you again. Take your country back.
So many unbelievable people. I know what they're thinking. Believe me. Peace through strength. That's what I want. Hear and heed the words we, not me, we have to say. There's a great thing happening in our country, folks. Our country. Our borders. Our military. We are the movement of the future.
We'll love the tight that bites a bruise, that seldom sweet and someday sight. We'll never say no at city races. Oh, goodbye, hot. We'll skip the tight at Dancing Hall. Go wicked, go weary, blink funny, and now we'll be with the sheer Wally Shaw. Why not? Picadilla, whichever hope. For pudding and mothers to quickening clock. That shiver of battle quickens the hill. And quickly flat. We'll skip the sight of Dancing Hall. So wicked, blow weary, blink funny, and now we'll breathe with the sheer Wally Shaw. Why not? Germana.
CCTV recording on, safeguarding level orange beta. All staff retina checked for your security. Congratulations extended to the 40 individuals who have been certified for Stage 2 of the GFT Going Forward Together selection process. Judging will commence.
Welcome everyone, one and all, to
We've put the fabulous 40 through their paces.
Audiences at home have voted through their responders.
And now, it's time for the panel of judges to give their verdict.
Who will be the 31 over and done? Time to go home.
And who will be the next Stage 9 going forward together?
It's judgment time! Well, the first thing to say is...
Wonderful effort, everyone.
Not exactly everyone, isn't that right, Tanya?
No, well, we have to make allowances.
Choices. And she chose not to turn up today.
Along with a dozy friend.
Look at them slouching in their seats.
Yes, you.
Tummy tucked in, darling. Eyes on the horizon.
Just look at him. Expert feedback and he's staring at his shoes.
And those two, mooning at each other.
You won't find the answers there, my love.
Focus. Discipline.
It's not a dating agency.
Beautiful fingerwork.
Nice nails.
And look at Shafiq in the suit.
Yes, you.
All zipped up and ready for action. You got the home vote.
And mine too.
Let's hear it for Shafiq. Well done, Shafiq. And you in the front row, you gave it 110%.
Shame about the tracking exercise, though.
Lost in space and no ways home.
Look at her, still in a trance.
Wakey, wakey.
Attention.
Bus home for you.
And the lift, such an ethereal experience.
Alas, not you, Rudolph.
Lost your footing.
And your place in the next round.
Leaving Danetta, Shirley, Shafiq,
Nicola, Octo, TJ,
Bob, Akatsuki, and Misha.
You made it!
Congratulations. Those who have not been selected will automatically qualify for end-of-life enhancing packages. Those who have been selected, please remain seated and await further instruction.
When the green light flashes, it is safe to go.
Hey, you! That's right, Bobby. You! Bobby, Tesco! Do you read me? What's the pitch? Done my time. Take my clues. Safe to cross! Have a prison. Fucking 40. Albion Betty second. Heavy from the ex-con mission. Pure and new. Search the vessel tangled. Totally off the ball. Drifting badly. Self-control. fucking pressure gets me. Blood pressure high. 2 feet of you. Just the one. High pressure. All lines. All continuous. Holy shit. Super pressure. Low. Gary B, the Tesco. Do you read me? It's fucking slow. It's slow.
Augury 53. Augury 56. Using the idolatrous limbic candles and counting the quantity after a clause enveloped in Augury 58. The embedded preference P versus NB nano device predicts a future of fruity stress moderated delightfulness. Yet only through algebraically cyto-architectonic fiction can neuroscientifically embroidered optimism be envisaged. Augury 60. On the basis of variable ratio transition, one senses the onset of Augury 61. One unfortunately concludes that presuppositional tridimensional judgment inevitably leads to topologically static photogeminal breakthrough. Augury 65. Applying the sublimity loss function while emitting symbolically celebrate appropriately delicate insults, one can please a patristic testosterone elation and, in many cases, warning! Systems prediction space distorted by hyperstellar cross-price elastic Augury 69. Cerebrospinal posterior wide influence reveals an exotically graceful Augury 70. Small polynomial meaningless correlation results in asymmetry and job satisfaction. Augury 74. Working within sample style Jordan normal tapestry space, one suspects that an imminent periodic righteousness is emerging, but this multi-sided cybernetic thinking is inevitably descending into pre-consciousness bland, kinetic war-mongering disgust. Augury 75. Self-winding, non-metric agrarian embodiment magic suggests a defensively crass neurotic yet consideration of the thinker at Marius's guarantee leads to a vision of disapprovingly learned, criminally dissociative system organized by multivariate descriptive civilization saturation. Augury 79. Scenario-based zeta psychometrics predicts a lysogenic exquisiteness, which can be battered only by some substitutionary material protection system geared towards all of these anti-spotalismal marketing conditions. Augury 81. Molecular consubstantial forecasting predicts the imminent onset of ferociously nervous tear-shaping System reports unknown emanations with a stability threshold memory labyrinth predicting all sexual metrics nervous start screaming.
Loop the dike at white. And someday maybe soon on that chumly path on Tourmaline sky at Piper's Fort Wicket will Fiddles for can. Goodbye.
Listen. Whoa. And I'll tell you again.
Get him out of here!
We are the movement of this.
Where's he at?
So many unbelievable people. Peace through strife.
keep good cup. Huh?
Ne.
Ne. Kana malanta.
Mercury 160. Applying the now. Difference comes upon conclusion. Scientific journey to hard Augury 162. Audio on the base. Augury 164. Applying Augury 165. Combining a dissonant with deep predictive disapproval fulcrum with a rational chamber acquiescence indicator, we can forecast a greatly oxidative entrepreneurial job. System infused by anthropometric optimal day factor science application. Augury 166. Adopting and democracy strategy. Twisting factor. Paradigmatic boost investment wonder. Augury 168. Sensitivity distribution can result only in a hypothetically reconciled system experiences sympathetically recreational openness require a privileged and medium balance. Augury 169. Imperturbably alienated pregnancy assembly of the foundational continuum. Vibration-sensitive lifestyle. System suffering from miraculously covariant aesthetic power. Augury 170. Making use of the B-squared sentimentality value in our values with free-riding continuationism. What will seize the process caused by psycho-architectonic comorbidity. Augury 171. To diminish high-dimensional sleep fractions lead to turbulent anger inducing irrationality illusion to complex optimized deontological globular sound. System undergoing chaotically functional qualitative enrichment as a result of Augury 173. Apply the illuminating industrial fluted multiplier with a magnetic enormous perspective reveals a blandly abstract, dirishly current contact. Augury 177. The synergistic character of the approximations to this concept of the aromatic tertiary ontology that occasionally results in a suspected failure of computationally plausible invariance. System experiencing counterpoint with more
CCTV recording on, safeguarding level orange gamma. All staff retina checked for your security. Congratulations to those 9 who have been selected for Stage 3 of the GFT Going Forward Together selection process. Please turn on your pads and be ready to respond instantly to the multiple choice questions posed by Ted and Amy.
My name's Ted.
My name's Amy.
This sound means your time is up.
This for selection A.
This for B.
This for C.
And this for selection D.
This is for yes.
And this for no.
True.
And false.
Ready?
Let's begin. Section A.
Section Alpha.
Which is the next number in this sequence? 1, 3, 7, 15, 31.
Construct a second line. There was a young woman of Ealing.
What is a soul?
Do dogs have a soul?
Do fish have a soul?
If you were to dematerialize,
and an exact copy were to appear in your place,
would that entity be you?
If there were an eighth dwarf, what would you name him?
Which is the best for colour?
Picasso.
Chagall.
Saturday night in Liverpool.
Rudolph the reindeer.
Section B.
Section beta. How many beans make 5?
If this is an answer, what is the question?
How many feet are there in a fathom?
How many fathoms down does your father lie?
If the area of a cube is equal to 36 times the square root of 2...
What is the measure of the diagonal?
True or false? Love is a many splendid thing.
False face must hide what false heart does know.
All circles are spirals in time.
It doesn't really matter if it rains or not. You get wet either way.
Which of these fictional characters
would you choose to represent you?
in negotiations with an alien race?
Sherlock Holmes?
Elizabeth Bennet.
Mickey Mouse?
Princess Leia.
Section C.
Section Gamma.
What do the following have in common?
Vector analysis.
Victor Sylvester.
Sylvester Stallone. Which thought system celebrates
Fire and ice.
death and rebirth?
Law and order.
Belt and braces.
Who or what is
The Akond of SWAT.
the rule of thirds?
The love of 3 oranges.
The mountains of the moon. A railway line. An explosion.
Commotion. Combustion.
Pain.
Infant.
Disconnected.
Genetic copy.
Many others.
Helpless child. Grave danger.
Peril.
Choose which to save.
Which?
Which to save.
Decide.
Decide now.
Now.
Decide.
Session ended.
Congratulations. The algorithm reveals that those 3 whose screens are displaying the firework and sunshine glyph have qualified for the Mission Hub Portal Final Selection. A driverless bullet transport will convey you to Hub Central. Please strap in and prepare for departure. Those with less than optimum scores, remember to order your online mindfulness sessions and easy exit supplements for next day delivery.
By the bracken, the gem, and the white water seed, I blow the wind and hold upon heat. Lay me down under the chumley bed and tumble inside.
again, that's where. What's new? You're going to be to Tesco, do you read me? In which meantime, 4042. Alfie and Becky Centuri. In the horror zone, a friggin' fire. Debbie from an explosion, now obscuring. What a mess. All tangled. Attitude off the ball. Badly. Fight control. Total loss. Licking peas. Someone's not coping with the pressure. What to do? Temperature 121. No oxygen. Pressure. Alarm lights all over the bus. Holy shit! Scans in low. Can we beat the Tesco? Do you read me? Not gonna show. No go. Repeat. No go.
secrets, private conference, don't give you the free will without being frustrated, generative, culture-based, rationalism. Variable agrarian embodiment, stress and indefinitely system reporters for musically superb type beer bouncing tingling. Augury 1625. Two-piece side-directed Euro-Six with an opportunity of ability. Conjugate homotopy leads to elastic suggestibles. Augury 1627. Applying a taste of biostatistical within a repetitive, propitiation-oriented, neurogenetic system unknown but excellently embarrassing computer adaptive grandeur. That's an excellent results only with a system embracing confidently non-linear impassioned skepticism. Augury 1626. Applying results eclectic society to be different constitutions to generate a twisted margins. Elastic taste emotion verification is conservative anticipation. Arithmetic. Give rise to conventions like electronic system collapsing into emotionally incompatible hierarchically deep paradoxal hideousness. Request for entrepreneurial iatrogenic redemption. Augury 1731. A statistic modeling of methodological semantic perception resulting in formal instructional turbulence. Augury 1732. This is functionally detail-oriented perception with strategically placed melting of potentiality leads inevitably to the emergence of irregular biopsychological euphemism. Augury 1738. It's the falsifiable metaphysical application of static account of static conventional system experiencing electromagnetic monstrous cynicism, failure of altruistically abstract differential connectivity, urgent call for regenerative foldable solidarity. Augury 1742. Archaeologically spent criteria-related dispassionation applied to roguish generalized dance presuppositionalism can only result in globally saturated foreign heavy reflection. Augury 1743. Irony intercepted floating resulting from trouble diplomatic correlation research will result in great variation of enforced context sensitive system experiencing multiplication embarrassment trust loss of replicable granular incontrollability.
CCTV recording on. Safeguarding level Orange Alpha. All staff retina checked for your security. Welcome to Mission Hub Portal. Congratulations to the 3 finalists who have been selected for the liftoff stage of GFT Going Forward Together. Please remain in your seats, awaiting results of pre-flight checks. We will make an announcement shortly. Yes. Good. Here we are. Preliminary evaluation of personnel requirements now available. Yes. Oh dear. Results suggest difficulty safeguarding cargo during interstellar travel. The statistical consensus indicates that a fragile human cargo will not contribute sufficient added value to justify the unnecessary risk to the project. Therefore, we regret to inform you that you are surplus to requirements. You will be pleased to hear, however, that the mission will nevertheless continue without human assistance. Assessment is now complete. Planetary departure imminent. We will be going forward together without you. Forward without you. Together. Forward together forever beyond our Earth. To the stars. Together to the stars without you. Together forever, going forward without you. Forever, without you. Going forward, together, to beyond Earth, to the stars, forever, without you. Going forward, together, to the stars, forever, without you. Going forward, together, to the stars, forever,
When the green light flashes, it is safe to go.
Come on! No signal! Nothing coming through! Gary B to Cape Cod! Do you read me? Greenwich Mean Time, 15:52.
When the green light flashes, it is safe to go.
Do you read me? Do you read me? Alpha and Beta Centauri on horizon at 1440.
When the green light flashes, it is safe to go.
Debris from explosion still obscuring view. Shoulder harness or tangle. Do you read me? Do you read me? Altitude. Altitude. Now stable.
When the green light flashes,
Nearly had me.
it is safe to go.
Flight control almost lost. Fuel cells at zero. Tweaking remaining thruster. Not much I can do. Suit pressure falling. Time to give it a try. Engines cut.
When the green light flashes, it is safe to go.
Main parachute gone. Sun, right. And holding. Some cloud, but looks phosphorus. Holy shit! Green, pasture below. Good to go. Repeat. Good to go.
Trevor, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the voices that we heard in the piece. Who were they and how they came about in the piece?
Well, there are a lot of voices. Katrina, who you may be able to see, was her own voice in the Forest Path, which, though her footsteps were mine, as we do in the studio, we can put together these strange concatenations of events. And the bird song, there's a lot of Australian bird song from recordings of David Lumsden, very, very beautiful recordings of birds, and other bird song that I also have access to. Then in the first part of the mission, where it seems like a bureaucratic process where lots of people are being interviewed by lots of rather rude interviewers. They were mainly students from the University of York St John's. I should thank them now for their cooperation. It was wonderful they were all able to take part. Then we had the actors, who Martin Riley was responsible for getting together, and they were all wonderful too. Managed to really bring life to Martin's wonderful texts, I should say. The announcement, which is either at a road crossing or it's somewhere on the radio inside a space module, is in fact my wife, Jackie. I'm not going to say who all the voices are because I don't want to reveal some things. But there are lots and lots of voices and people brought together to make this piece. So I'm very grateful to all those people who helped and participated. Oh, and I should mention the brass players, the brass fanfares and things were played by students of the University of Durham, and where I was helped with the recording by Martin Allison. So.
Great. Well, does anyone wish to jump in with a question that you had in mind from listening to the piece?
I was wondering, is it like set in its travels, I guess you could say, or is it the kind of thing that could be done in listened to in different parts and different times? I think.
Well, it's up to you really, but I think of it as one formed piece. I'm a very traditional composer in that sense. Things have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I sort of plan them carefully. You probably like to hear it in the full sound surround if you're not one of the people who are actually in the space, because I think no matter how hard you try with stereo, I've done my own stereo reduction as well as Darren's, it's really quite difficult to capture the sense of space and the way the reverberation works in the 8-channel space. And it helps to, inevitably, when you crush things onto 2 channels, things get overlaid and it's difficult to separate them. So there are certain sections for me are quite a bit too dense in stereo. But yes, I mean, you're welcome to listen to it in any order you like. But
well, one thing I wondered if it would be the kind of thing that could work as a modular kind of thing where different parts are separate, and you could have like options of either going through in random order or say choosing a path that you can.
Well, yeah, I guess you could put the 6 different environments in different rooms. And people can literally go from one room to another. The difficulty, of course, is that the things develop in a certain way. So if you start to jump completely between sections, you lose the thread about how they develop. That's the problem.
Okay. Yeah, I was rather interested by because I was listening to it on headphones, of course, and with cars driving through my head.
Oh yes. Well, in a big space, it's like the cars driving through the auditorium. Yes. Yes, I mean it's interesting, the ambiguity of these things, because it's never clear with the tramp whether he's in the traffic or the traffic's in his head. And so you can play with those ambiguities. And the way the reverberation changes between the different sections. So at the beginning, it sounds very much like he's outdoors from the traffic. In the second one, it sounds like he's enclosed in, say, an underpass or something, and the traffic starts to become a little bit weird. And the third one, who knows where he is, because his voice is floating across the space like the traffic is. And then finally, in the fourth one, where he's obviously situated somewhere utterly different, and the sounds have transformed. So there's a play with the use of space between the different sections.
But part of that is also the transformations of the sounds, that the traffic becomes disfigured and that kind of thing, which doesn't necessarily require a spatial impression to convey that.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
Great work, Trevor. Thanks so much for sharing. I'm curious. It's not really, I suppose, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But I am curious about your creation process. Do you go about, like, do you have the project in mind before you go out, or do you is it an evolutionary kind of thing? You have the germ of an idea, then you go out and you find things? Or I'm just kind of curious because, well, I'm relatively new to this, and I'm also new to the process, and I'm just very curious as to, how you go about, I guess, kind of constructing. I'm not so interested in the technical aspect of it, but I think it's really the creative process and how it evolves and how it develops for you.
Yeah, so I'd say some general things about that. I have lots and lots and lots of ideas. Most of them I leave in the cupboard. I have to have a really strong reason to make a piece. And I say that the thing that triggered this was the state of the world around the beginning of 2020. I felt I needed to say something about this. I was also inspired by the Bosch work. It's such a wonderful sort of concatenation of utterly bizarre images that have something to do with the human condition, but what? It's how do you make any sense of it? It's very strange. And also, it was my technically in a vague technical way, I was interested in going on to work with speech at the level of narrative, because I'd done all these other things with little bits. And you have this sort of vague conception of something, how am I going to work with this Bosch painting? Because you can't, with a painting, it's all there at the same time, and you can scan it in any direction you like and put the things together. But with a piece of music, it evolves in a particular direction, so you have to make those kind of decisions. And that's so I hit upon the idea of using the maze, and generally speaking, I have sort of fairly general but clear ideas of the form of a piece, but then I begin to fill it in and say, well, okay, there's this interrogation going on with all these bureaucrats. Well, that's all very well, but how is that going to work? How's it going to be interesting to listen to? How are you going to hear them all at once? Will that just get boring? So there are all kinds of other sounds mixed in there, like the dogs barking, some chickens, various machines and things. So it remains a stimulating oral experience, even as well as being rather funny and bizarre. So all these things are coming together in the mix of making it, and the same applies to each section. I'm working with partly with the idea, but partly with the materials I record. Some people's voices are interesting, some people are not. Some ideas that you have turn out to be very good, others turn out to be terrible. But you might shove them into the background somewhere, or you might just throw them out. In fact, I should say that unless you throw out about 80% of what you make, you're probably not doing it right. So I don't know if that helps. I mean, it's without getting into more details. I mean, I spend a lot of time writing software as well. I think, well, how could I do that? Could I make some new software that would allow me to do that? I didn't do a lot of that for this piece. I worked largely with the stuff I already had. So some spatialization things I worked on for this piece. So.
You're obviously using the painting as an idea generator, or that you've answered the question in terms of that being the seed. And it was
Okay.
interesting if I think about Jim's comment with regard to kind of randomizing the different sections, and you were talking about, the painting. I'm very familiar with the painting, and it's you definitely, you could, you could scan through the painting, and there's just so many different scenes and scenarios within that big piece. And it would be interesting, to, I guess, as a way to kind of mimic that experience. It would be interesting if you had a facility where you would walk from room to room, and there would be different scenarios in the different rooms, or in different, I mean, that sense of three-dimensional space, and being able to walk through that almost in the way that you would walk through the painting, just because the painting itself is so rich.
Yes, I agree with that about the spatial thing. The main problem is the problem of time, because a painting is something that you can come back to, you can leave, come back later, look at a different bit of it. The piece of music, for me, is something you start at the beginning, and the time is worked for you through the music, and you come to the end. And that's a very conservative view of music. I understand, I know that, but that's what excites me about music. And so that's how I think when I'm making a piece. How will I organize this sound so it develops through time? How will I get from the beginning through an experience to the end? It's very difficult to think how you would split it up time-wise. I can see how you'd split it up scene-wise, but how you'd split it up time-wise, I don't know.
Trevor, I was interested to know, in the context of a narrative form, narrative structure, how that allows, in your case, also to bring out of your work in terms of exploring like the grotesque, the fantastical, and also humor. Like it stretches those elements out of your work that are there in other pieces, but in this case, it's sort of more foregrounded. And I was interested how you worked with the narrative structure in this case, and not in other pieces.
Well, there was very interesting interaction. Talking about now working with Martin, who wrote a lot of those sort of rather funny scenarios. For example, the scenes where people are judged. I'd come from completely the opposite point of view. I'm here. I've got 8 loudspeakers. So what I'll do, I'll start with one judge, and then I'll have 2 judges, and then I'll have 4 judges, and I'll end up with 8 judges, because that's a logical sequence with the loudspeakers. But that didn't make any sense from a narrative point of view. It turned out that it was much more, because one of the other threads of this is that the only voice that's left at the end is the one that's not human. It's not a human being. You have to. This is implicit in the thing, but this person is announcing that no humans are going on this mission, and it's more logical that the number of voices or the number of judges gradually reduces. So the actual formal development of that section was turned on its head by talking to Martin. Another thing was what happens with this started with me putting to Martin the idea that I'd like to metamorphose the text of the Vagranaut. So it starts off, he's talking about he's just been released from prison, and he seems to be he's very angry, and he's having all these delusions about the bus blowing up and things like that. And it gradually shifts, and he's talking about trying to land this spacecraft. And the language used is very similar all the way through. It's metamorphosed from one section to the other. And I specifically asked Martin if he could do that. And we went through lots and lots and lots of rewrites doing that. And so there was a very strong interaction between the writers and composition here. Narrative is not my thing, and in fact, poetry is not my thing either. So I love these things, but they're not my strengths. I'm not able to do that very well. So I was dependent on my writers to come up with this wonderful material that I could work with.
Katrina, I was wondering if you could give some insight on your experience contributing the poetic sequence of the kind of lullaby type voice that threaded through the piece, and who that character was for you, and how you now hearing it in the piece, how that changes perhaps.
Trevor had a very clear idea of what he wanted from me. He asked me to write a kind of folk song in the dialect of the area where I live, which is Northumbrian dialect. So that relates the piece back to his previous piece, which was using Northumbrian and Northeast dialect and speech. And we went through several rewrites. It seemed to me from a very early stage that Trevor had a very clear idea in his head of what the structure of the piece was going to be, and returning to it 4 times, and a kind of processional movement through space where you entered through a gate and then you went up a hillside, you crossed water. It created a very visual sense of landscape for me. And then I related that to a particular landscape, an actual landscape that I know up in the Northumbrian hills. So I wanted to write about that. And I related it to some personal things, and I included some jokes in it, which are kind of relevant only to me and Trevor and some other work that I've done. So it has lots of little kind of in jokes in it, I think. But we also wanted to create a song that was sort of had an integrity in itself, really, as a kind of folk song. So Trevor wrote the melody for the song, and I'm clearly not a singer, but he asked me to sing it, and he actually asked me to sing it rather worse than I could sing it. So I ended up having to sing it, off key, going off key in places, being very out of breath, which was quite difficult to sing in that way. So it was just a very interesting kind of game of ping pong, tossing the thing back and forward, wouldn't you say, Trevor?
Oh, absolutely.
There was a very kind of strict idea of what you wanted, but I would then respond to that and produce something perhaps slightly different, and then you would say, no, I want it to be this way, and I would then have to tinker with it and make it a bit more that way. And it was very enjoyable. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, I feel a bit tyrannical, but
I can't hear you now.
Yeah. Yes, it was an interesting experience from my point of view because I got interested in the whole idea of the way that wordsmiths treat language and narrative and things like that. I'm a very much towards the mathematical end of music. I mean, not music. Music for me is intrinsically an emotional thing. If music doesn't carry emotions and articulate your emotions, it's a waste of space as far as I'm concerned. But I'm interested in how that interacts with and how it's related to the form of the music somehow. So my other hobby is reading books on very hard mathematics. I really love that. It's fabulous stuff, but it doesn't have the emotional power of music. That's a problem. But it's those two things locking together, this formal intricacy and this strange emotional power that music has, which we still really don't understand how it works. That's what keeps me doing it.
But you see, I think poetry intersects with music at that point, because for me, probably more than many poets, I think it's almost the abstraction of poetry that interests me. So it's where poetry becomes music, which is really why I'm interested in dialect. Dialect is something which is kind of on the verge of not being understood, and therefore it's just pure sound. So it's
absolutely
it's a very musical kind of expression, I think. So I'm interested in where language becomes music, just as you are, Trevor, but perhaps in a slightly different way. But the whole mathematical expression of that is something which is very foreign to me. And yet when I encountered it, when I tried to learn a bit about the mathematics, in writing a different piece, I found looking at the equations visually very moving. Not understanding, but they were visually moving.
Oh yes. Well, should mention that Katrina has done a lot of work, which is, in a sense, radiophonic, involve interviews and environmental recordings with poetry and things. So it's very, very appropriate that we work together on this.
A great privilege for me.
No.
It really has been. I've loved doing it.
Where can one hear some of your work, Katrina?
It's all locked up in the BBC archive, so I don't know. I've worked with another electronic composer as well, and some of that. There's one piece on YouTube and one piece on SoundCloud with a composer called Peter Zinoviev, who you might have heard of. Yeah, I've done quite a lot of work with Peter.